Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Public Opinion Tea Time with your hosts, Pam and Vanetta. And this time we are having tea time with wine.
Wine time to tea.
Yes, we are celebrating the beginning of Black History Month. Yes,
Cheers.
Our big 29. Ooh, we got an extra day this year.
Oh,
extra day. We have a leap day this year.
That means I can ask somebody to marry me, right?
I have no idea.
I think in leap year you can ask somebody to marry.
Okay.
Well, a woman can ask a man.
I think if you're not already married.
Okay, that is a technicality.
Now, now you are already married, so I don't think that's going to happen. But this is Black History Month 2024, and we are going to be talking about, giving a review about the movie Rustin. And Colman Domingo was nominated for Best Actor in this movie. So we, like we said before, we're going to be talking about a lot of the Oscar nominations of people of color. And I'm going to tell you.
Which is nice to say, people of color.
Yes. Rustin is about Bayard Rustin, who actually was the organizer for the March on Washington. He was a big civil rights activist, but we just do not hear a lot about him.
He was beyond the organizer, though. He was the foundation. It was his concept.
Right. And the movie touched on his relationship. He had a friendship with Martin Luther King. But they didn't actually say like how they met. There was a whole lot of alluding to some things, but it was a very good movie. It took you really behind the scenes of the civil rights movement that led up to the March on Washington, and all that. And you saw a whole lot of
and it showed how they tried to destroy us based on our choices, who we were. He was unapologetically gay.
Which is probably right, which is probably one of the reasons that we just didn't know a whole lot about him, because the NAACP themselves didn't want him to be in the forefront.
Didn't want him to be the face of it.
Yes, because they were afraid of that type of, labeling or with him being in the forefront, especially Adam Clayton Powell, who is horrible.
The devil.
He was a horrible, played by Jeffrey Wright, who is.
He was so good, Pam didn't even know him.
I'm gonna tell you, I didn't recognize
him. He played his role. You did not like him.
Yeah, but there was so many people in this movie.
Yeah,
it was stars. So there was Chris Rock. There was Glenn Thurman. There, Adrian Warren was in it, and but I thought that it did a really good job of showing who he was as a man. And like you said, he was unapologetically gay. He was like, this is who I am.
I'm gay. I was born this way. It wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
But also what he was determined to do good for his people.
Right.
Even though his people were some of the people who disgraced him.
There were a lot of infighting. And early on, he was very dismayed because he thought that Martin Luther King was going to stand up for him as his friend. When he gave his letter of resignation to NAACP, but Martin Luther King was just basically like, well, thank you for your years of service, because he also was being, he had a lot of pressure on him.
He was a very young man. We tend to forget how young he was.
How young Martin Luther King was.
And he was selected for that role. We all view him as born into it because it's Daddy King and everything, but he was selected, that young preacher from.
Right.
He was 34 years old.
Yeah. So at any rate, Bayard Rustin, and they showed his relationships, and his relationship particularly with another gentleman who was a preacher and also part of the civil rights movement, who was married though. And it showed just the struggle that he was having
internally
with his own sexual identity.
But it also showed too, this young white man, he was gay and he was one of his lovers, but this man had given up everything to do right in society.
Right, exactly.
He went to Howard.
Yeah, and it also showed though that we had a lot of allies.
We had a lot of allies
of white allies who helped. But I loved how he said, okay, we're going to do this march. We have to bring awareness. Now that was the whole stuff with the voting rights and all of that.
That's right.
So
7 weeks they did something that big.
They put it together
with the hope to get 100,000 people and to get 250,000.
Yeah, they ended up with 250,000.
I can't imagine the pride you felt looking out over that. Yes. I mean, as people, as a race, we are strong. We have endured so very much. And as Pam and I were saying, as a group of people, we have to maintain that. We have to carry that into the generations and generations.
Yes.
Our young people have got to exercise their right.
While I was sitting there, I kept making a comment to you about how it just makes me so sad that so many of our young people do not even value the struggles that so many of our people went through just so that we can have the freedoms that we enjoy. I come across people who actually tell me, oh, I don't vote. I've never voted, or my vote is not going to count. And it's so important that you remember
I have to
for
believe,
no other reason, but because of what
the blood it was shed for you. But I have to believe that those are uneducated people who have lacked good nutrition, things of that nature.
No, it's people who feel like they're doing okay now, and they don't really feel like they have to depend on government or resources or anything to have what they have. And so they just do not appreciate the struggle. And I think that
those are people who don't know they have diagnosed mental illness.
No, it's not a diagnosed mental illness.
Yes, it is.
It's not an appreciation for the struggles for people who came before. And so this is just a lot, I think, that this movie gives you to think about. It makes you think about the fact that he, as a gay man, though, he said, if we're going to say that we stand for the rights of all men, then you have to understand it and take that all into appreciation. And he said something in it that I really like. He said, we are charged with the trajectory of this nation towards freedom. And so for him to have felt that way, and that burning desire and passion, and that's what it had to be, for you to really say that I'm gonna go out and risk everything, because not only was he risking, as Black people, you're always risking your life and everything, but he was risking everything as a Black gay man also, with everything that went
threats and everything.
That, because even within the NAACP, they were, they were like, well, we don't really, like you said, we don't want you to be in the face.
You're not the face of the organization. It was looming. But we also must bring it to the forefront too, that we still, even as Black people, we had our own biases. Women were not considered valuable. We were pushed to the back, just like with the women's movement. Black women were pushed to the back. Black women have always had to fight so much harder.
Yeah. And that was even brought up in here, because she was saying, the woman who was helping organize, she was like, well, where are the women? A lot of women are saying that they don't want to come because you don't have people making announcements and stuff who are women. But it was
even Rosa Parks denied, said she wouldn't be on it.
Yeah, but it was very good. I must say that I watched the movie twice now. The first time I watched it, I didn't think it was that good of a movie, because I think it could have been better. I do believe that they could have developed the movie itself a little bit better. But I thought, and I still believe today, Colman Domingo
hit all the marks.
Deserves to win an award.
He does.
Embodied who the spirit of Bayard Rustin, and
you felt like you knew that man,
right?
And you felt bad for not knowing his story.
That's the thing.
You really did.
After I saw it the first time, I went back and was reading
about it would make you do that. I'm going to find out more.
I had to Google him to find out.
But it was only a 7-week process that we followed with him. But did you notice how it looked like he aged him? His hair became more gray. Now, ladies, he had a process. Now you got to see that. But it just became more gray. It looked like the toll that it took on. And you know what it reminded me of? The president.
Barack Obama.
It looked like after those 8 years.
And I must say that Barack and Michelle Obama were executive producers of this movie. And the pride he must have felt, or, knowing all of the history.
Right.
And if those people could have lived to see this.
That's what you kept thinking.
Yeah.
If they had only lived. But their vision, their dream was to see him.
Yes.
He stood on the shoulders.
And, so you had the heavy hitters. You had Adam Clayton Powell. You had Roy Wilkins in there. You had A. Philip Randolph was portrayed in here. John Lewis. Very young John Lewis, who was head.
And it showed like he was a boy.
Snick back then. So it was I just felt like, wow, these were all people who shaped so much of what we know.
What we also thought too, I always thought it was Snick that made this whole march and the NAACP.
Right.
That was not the case.
No, it wasn't.
The NAACP was not on board. SNCC was always progressive, and because it was young people.
Yeah, it was young. They were willing, because they were like, yes, this is what we want. But yeah, Bayard, it was his vision.
It was his vision.
And he also was very pro nonviolent. So like they talked about in here,
Gandhi spoke about a lot.
Right, he talked about Gandhi, and a lot of people think that Martin Luther King just got that nonviolence from Gandhi, but it was his association with Rustin also, who believed in this. He believed in nonviolence so much to the point that they had the police officers there not use any of their guns. They didn't wear their uniforms. They wore white, and they're the ones that had those white hats on.
And I told Pam, she thought it was so funny. As a little girl, you see the pictures and the speech. I thought they were bakers. I always thought those men were bakers.
They were like Muslim people, but they weren't. They were just, they needed to have all of these people, but he did not want to have that type of a presence. Because then it would look, but he
didn't want to look like we need the armed forces right there. But what he did do, which was remarkable, get the bus routes changed, get celebrities to come and fund this. And what the number was, $67,000, which is a lot of money still today, but it was like nothing to do that.
Right. People nowadays be like, I'll write you a check. Okay. But it was a very good. So we have to urge you all to watch, especially during Black History Month, because there is so much Black history in this movie.
And this for sure. And it's not just the standards.
Right. It's not. And that's what I do like. I like, always they pull out, your standard of Martin Luther King.
Now they put the names in there.
Harriet, that
okay.
But
Rosa Parks.
Yes.
And they brought out all those names, but they were really background players to this.
Yes, absolutely. So that right. And I thought that was important because Colman Domingo, he was just out there in the forefront. I do believe, I'm not sure if he'll win an award because, they got Oppenheimer, the man that started Oppenheimer, some of the other ones, you know how they are. But
let's say this, he's won the hearts of anybody who watched that movie.
And I'm sure he is his own award.
He definitely, and I saw him walking the red carpet at the Globes. He's proud.
He is very proud. He is very proud.
He did much, and I liked him in this more than Mr. He's a mean sucker in Mr. Yes. But even in Mr.
Color
Purple, he was a more empathetic Mr. than Danny Glover. I mean, the role, the way it was written.
Yeah.
I hated Danny Glover. Hey.
Well, anyway, if you enjoy watching us talk to each other.
I had a lot of wine, too.
Okay, we enjoyed this conversation. If you enjoy watching us, continue to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. And if you cannot watch the show, listen on the go wherever you get your podcast. So until next time, we'll see you for another episode of Public Opinion Tea Time. Bye.
Bye-bye.